Hey, in this new mini devlog from a roguelike game called Caves of Umbra, I will show you the process of adding a brand new secondary attack, being a knife rain. This is both interesting because not only the attack is a new one, but also the whole system of secondary actions is brand new. So let's get right into it. So just for some context, secondary actions can be attacks or some different action, and they are triggered with the right mouse button. When triggered, you can see that the UI bar is completely emptied. So when you refill this bar again, you can trigger the action one more time. Other than the weapons, you can also only hold one of these actions at a time. So you need to decide when finding these. That's not too much of a problem yet because you can't find new items in chests so far. To begin with the creation process, I obviously needed to find a concept first. And as I recently added status effects to my game, I wanted to do something using this. I like the idea of applying an effect to enemies in a certain radius or even all enemies. In terms of which effect is applied, I definitely wanted to do my favorite one, which is the bleed effect. This one makes entities take around 1.5 times more damage. Now let's think of a nice particle effect. This is very important because it is one of the few things that give the player visual feedback here, so it is basically how the complete secondary action looks like. I first thought of a sort of rain, but the water is replaced with blood drops that you know from the icon of the bleed effect. But when thinking of rain, I also like the idea of a knife rain. This was my favorite idea so far, so I immediately opened Photoshop and drew this knife, both as a particle in the particle effect and as the icon in the bottom right. To be honest, I don't need to go any more into detail in terms of the drawing process because I already showed you this exact same process thousands of times in the past on this channel. So let's rather move on to the particle effect, where I first used the one of the bleed status effect as a base to start with. This is much easier than starting from scratch because we already have the spawning and movement in place. Also, the particles fade in and out when spawning and disappearing. So my first actual work to do was to replace the used sprite with the newly created knife. And I then directly moved on to increase the area where the particles spawn. Next, I changed the particle system so that the particles don't spawn over time, but they spawn in a burst. This is because we just want a particle effect when performing the secondary action. This is also pretty quick and effective, so it shows you what happens without wasting much time. So now let's move on by rotating the particles and also the movement so that it looks a little more like a knife rain than a dull and boring knife drop or something. Lastly, I adjusted some values like particle lifetime, and I also adjusted the number of cycles in one burst of particles. So after this, it's time for some code, where I began by integrating the apply effect script into the script of the secondary action. Then I changed the argument searching for all bullets in the scene so that it searches for all enemy effect managers. Below that, I then wrote a for loop going through this very array of effect managers where I apply the bleed effect to the current element every cycle. To finish this new secondary attack, I needed to fix a big mistake I just noticed. I forgot to actually lock the ability to use a secondary action when the refill bar is not filled. That's one thing when I show you these systems. When they're so early in development, I always come across some issues or things that are missing, but that's also part of the fun of these mini devlogs. So I just needed to check if the bool variable for the secondary action is true or not when trying to perform one. And with that and some last work on the icon in the bottom right corner, we got a knife rain secondary attack. As you might have seen, these are relatively common, which means that the bar fills up really quickly. But that will of course change when I don't need to actively test them out all the time. I really hope you like this attack and also the system of secondary attacks. If you have some feedback, please let me know in the comments, and if you don't want to miss anything on Caves of Umbra in the future, you can subscribe to my channel, which would mean the world to me. With that said, see you next time. Cheers!